Lords of Wonder and Ruin, a collection of rules for medieval war games by Alchemic Raker. You know, sometimes you just want to throw some units on the table, have a fun little scenario. What I've got cooked up for you today is probably wildly unbalanced, but it'll allow us to take a look and use the old lords. This is chainmail. Spoiler alert, we're just playing chainmail with a different skin on top. Yeah, we're skin suiting it, but it's got lots of great little tables and things walk through. When a unit in close order melees a unit in open order, the unit in close order suffers no fatigue. It uses fatigue points instead of a Chinese menu of you got to remember all this stuff. It's such a good game. Let's take a look at the forces. Playing at 1 to 10 scale, the Roman Empire brings 60 knights. We're going to call those heavy cavalry today. 50 archers, 1 hero. We've got 120 peasants. Fierce, doughty, ill-trained, ill-equipped. We'll see what happens with those guys. Maybe just a speed bump for the opposition, but they are backed by 100 spearmen. We're going to call those heavy units today. And in this corner, we have a whole bunch of you dirty rats. Again, I've got 1 leader. Not quite sure what that means yet. I'll figure it out once I get to ring down. The unit in the front right, those are light troops. Just standard light troops. Maybe we'll call those elite light troops to make it interesting. We want to see what those rules do. There's only 80 of those, or 8 figures. Behind them are 2 units of medium infantry with normal hand weapons. There's 150 and 160 of those. And then over here on the left-hand side of the screen are 2 units of spear medium infantry. One with 120, one with 160 rats. Whole lot of swarming going on here. This might be too many rats for the Empire to handle, but remember, the Empire does have that unit of heavy cavalry that, if they can stay fresh, is kind of OP. For terrain, we've got a stream, costs 6 inches to cross. Unless you are at the ford or the bridge, you can only cross those in open order. The marsh does not block line of sight, but you cannot travel through it. You'll sink and you'll die. And then we have 3 patches of rough going, the woods and the ruined temple complexes over here on the left. I use scatter dice to throw some victory objective markers down on the table. I just rolled a d10 direction die, and then I had to re-roll 1 because they both landed in the same place, so this one got re-rolled, just to be honest with you. Now we got to decide who's going to pick which side. The white die is for the humans, and the rats are going to get to pick which side they want to come in on, and they obviously want to come in on that side. It's going to bottle the Romans up behind the stream. It's going to give them time to race over and grab a couple of these victory objectives. And then instead of doing alternating deployment, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do all the rats, and then the Bromans show up. So effectively, the rats got to jump on the Bromans. The rats put their 2 units of... And I keep saying heavy. Remember that it goes light, heavy, armored. 2 units of heavy troops here in the foreground. And then over on their left flank, they've got both units of heavy spearmen. The light units, we're not going to make those guys elite. The humans are up against it as it is. So these light troops, the 8 of them, are going to be here in the center. They're a lot closer to those objective markers. The humans deploy their knights way over on the opposite side of the table, their extreme right flank. They've already crossed the stream, not going to be an issue for them. They're really up against it. Those knights are going up against a whole lot of spears. That's going to be a problem. To balance things out just a little bit, I've doubled the number of archers. They now have 100. I think this is still going to be an unfair fight. I think the humans are in trouble. The rats have a 3-to-1 advantage over there in spearmen. So our spearmen are in column. They're going to run across the bridge and try to form up over here. Remember, they're designed to hold ground. We're going to have to let the knights do what they do, see what happens. The peasants will run over and try to control the ford. And then we've got these 10 archers. They're just going to have to set up somewhere back here. Now, we will be playing at half scale with 15 millimeter figures. That does give us a table approximately 48 inches deep and about 50 inches across. That brings us to initiative. And we begin, as we always do, with a tie. We'll just do a little bit of a re-roll here. And now, at least the humans have the initiative. They're going to get to go first. Now, they could have the rats move first, but I think we want to go ahead and just seize the initiative and get up as far as we can. At the end of turn 2, the tabletop situation looks a little something like this. The 2 yellow chips on every unit reflect the fact that those units have all moved twice. The only unit that has not moved twice is the peasants down here. To move peasants, every time you want to move them, you got to roll, and you got to get a 7 or less. As you can see, I rolled a 10. They decided not to move, which means they spent the turn resting. Okay, they're not terribly motivated, but here's a really interesting question. Is that a morale check, or is it a movement check? And that's an important distinction, because every unit that is within 6 inches of a leader, and here's our leader of the Bromans, he's within 6 inches, that would subtract 1 from each of the dice. So for a normal morale check, for casualties or to withstand a charge, you would subtract 1 from each of these dice. Now in this case, we still rolled an 8, so the peasants still, even with the leader motivating them and trying to drag them forward to the front, it's not going to get them to move. But I invite you to discuss down in the comments, particularly those of you who may have written the Old Lords of Wonder and Ruin, because that, I can't recall that ever coming up before, even in games of chainmail. Interesting question. So as we move into round number 3, we again roll for initiative, and this time we're going to call that a 6. The Bromans get to go first, and they say, you know what? I don't want to. I want to see what you guys are doing. They're going to let the rats move first. And by the way, I've replaced these 2 objective markers with red gems because they are neutral. The 2 gems over here are purple because the boys in purple, see, I painted them with purple cloaks here. I don't know if you can see. We'll bring them up a little bit closer. I hope that looks purple on the camera. It looks purple in real life. Take my word for it. And as we zoom in close, you'll see that. So purple means the rats, and then we'll replace these with yellow in the event that they should come under the control of the Bromans. The hordes of rats have decided to bring their heavy infantry forward, earning them a 3rd "We're so sleepy" chip. On this side of the battlefield, they're going to take their rest. They're going to take their ease. They do not want to get into melee exhausted because they'll be fighting as light infantry. Now over here on the Broman side, the Bromans say, yeah, we'll do the same for our knights and for our archers. Now the archers don't want to move anyway because they get to fire twice if they don't move. The peasants need to come up here and at least hold off this unit for a turn or 2. They're going to try to move up. With the result of it, and now it's important. Is that a morale check? I am going to argue that it is a morale check. Are they inspired enough to move forward? So we're going to bring them forward 3 inches. Right to there. Well, actually, let's go ahead and bring them up another inch. Those peasants don't have the movement to charge into this medium infantry. They wouldn't want to do that anyway. Remember when I said the stream costs 6 inches to cross? This die indicates that this unit has spent 4 of those inches so far. Not only that, but with 7.5 inches of range, only 6 of them, the 6 nearest to the camera, have the range, and this unit is out of their front fire arc. Remember that they can only fire up to 45 degrees, so they're going to have to fire at these guys. It's the only shot they got. Now the good news is they automatically, when you've got 6 figures firing at heavy infantry, you automatically do 2 casualties. Then you also get 4 potential casualties. Now, it's really 1, and then we're going to roll 2d6 hitting on 6s. But because they didn't move, they get to fire twice. We do 2 with the potential of up to 4 more, depending on how many 6s we roll. So 3 casualties isn't bad, but it's not enough to trigger a morale check due to excess casualties. Since we have no melee, we go back to the initiative phase. We get a tie. Man, we like tying initiative phases. The Bromans get to go first, and they absolutely want to go first this time. Oh, do they? No, they don't. They want to know what the Ratlings are doing, because if the Ratlings move up, it's going to set them up for the charge. We're going to demand... Oh, one thing I forgot on the last turn. These guys, all they did was change formation. Does that mean that they didn't move, or does that count as a move? Well, it doesn't really matter because they're not moving this turn, so we're going to get rid of those fatigue markers, and now it's a bit of a waiting game. The good news for the Bromans is that with the archers in play, they can just sit back and really stick it to the Ratlings, and that's where the puzzle comes to the fore. Now the Ratlings can bring their guys up. They've got a little bit of rest, but that's where this side of the battlefield really takes on added import by making them go first. The Ratlings are going to charge. Now, they can charge a total of 6 inches. 12 inch. Well, they can charge a total of 12. That's 6 inches on my table. And as you can see, they are more than in range, but we have to subtract 2 inches from their movement. So they still have 4 inches of movement available to them. So they are going to be able to make contact just barely. And that's important because if these peasants fail their morale check, and again, with a 12-inch or 6-inch on my table, this really is a morale check. So are they going to stick around and fight? To find out, we check this table. They're being charged by heavy infantry. That means to stand their ground, we need to roll a 7 or less. Well, we really only need to roll a 9 or less. And if they fail, they're going to wind up hoofing it back the way they came. And because this unit is completely out of movement from their charge range, they're just going to stop right there. Because they charged, they pick up another couple of fatigue markers. They are now at 5 fatigue. They will fight. If fight they do as one troop unit lower, they will fight as light infantry. So this will wind up being light versus light. Although, bear in mind, with 12v15, the numbers advantage goes to the Ratlings. So let's find out if these guys stick around. With a result of a 6 minus 2, that's a 4. Yeah, they will fight. We'll give it a shot. Now, we're still in the movement phase. The heavy foot have not moved, rested, refreshed. These guys are up to 1 fatigue marker. The heavy knights wind up charging. They've used 6 of their 9 inches of movement. I put a little green die down there. They have 3 inches of movement left that they can use to pursue these spears if they drive them off. The heavy foot down here, of course, if they beat the peasants, do not have the movement left to pursue them at all. But before we get to that, all 10 of our archers are now in range of this unit over here. And 10 archers firing at half or shield. And 10 archers firing at heavy armor. What kind of armor type do we got here? We're going to call it half or shield. They're going to do, so this is when there were only 6 of them. We did 1 with 2 possibles. Now we're going to do 3 with 3 possibles. That means we are automatically going to do 6 casualties, and we're going to roll 6 dice to see, fishing for 6s, if we do any more than that. So 6 plus none, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 takes them down to less than half of their original number of figures. And that means they're out of the fight. I think, let's check the chart. Heavy foot take their first casualty check at 33%. Then at 66%, they are going to fail the morale check, and they're going to rout. Okay, but wait a second. They automatically rout at 66, so we actually have to do a little bit of math here. Remember, they took 3 casualties to start with. Another 6 is 9. And so at 13.5, that means with 14, they have to take 1 more casualty before they automatically fail. But they do have to pass that morale check. Are they within 6 inches of their boss? They're not. The base doesn't count. It's just the figures themselves. That means it's just a straight up check. With a result of a 7, heavy foot, in order to stay on the battlefield, have to roll a 7 or better. They are still in the fight. We move on to the melee portion of the turn. We're going to do this one first. There's 5 peasants in the front versus 5 heavy infantry. Fighting is light because they are exhausted. That means everybody is hitting on 6s. Only the front rank can fight, so we roll 5 dice for both. Count the 6s. They both score a single 6. So we take off 1 guy from the back rank of both, and we'll lay it down just to remind us of what the casualties were. Now, the casualties are only the first step in figuring out who won the fight. The peasants earn 2 more fatigue markers. Because there are more rats than peasants, we're going to add 1 to their troop class. Heavy infantry are troop class 5, plus 1 is 6. Multiply the number of surviving troops by that troop class. Multiply it by 6. As you can see, we've got 14 times 6 is going to be 84. The peasants, remember, you have to subtract 1. Normally, light infantry are 4. Subtract 1, that's 3. With the 11 of them, that's 33. So 84 versus 33 for a difference of 29 means the losers have to go back a half a move in good order. I know it's blurry. Take my word for it. Half a move for peasants is going to be half of their normal move. Their normal move is 4.5 inches. They are going to fall back 2.25 inches. But remember, the rats don't have the energy to pursue, so they've just pushed him back a little bit. And I got to tell you, I'm a little surprised at how well the peasants did in that fight. I think all things considered, we can chalk that up as a victory for them in the sense that they did what they had to do. They've held these guys off for a turn, and if they rest for a turn, they're putting themselves at risk of being charged. Now for the big one. The knights have a frontage of 4. For every figure in contact, they can roll 3 dice going against heavy foot. That means we're rolling 12 dice, and they're hitting on 5s. Now, combat is simultaneous, but just so you can see what I'm rolling here and bumping the camera, there you go. How many 5s and 6s did we get? 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 casualties for the Broman Knights. And I'll just pull them off the Sabbat base so it's clear how many guys have died. Now for the counterattack. The rats get to counterattack because there are, remember, it's simultaneous. So we've got 2 ranks of 5 guys each. Heavy foot attacking heavy horse get to roll 1 die per every 4 men. Oh, so they're only going to roll 2 dice. Fishing for 6s. Oh, yeah, 6s hit. They're not going to get any casualties. Now we check morale. The heavy foot, troop class of 5, but because they outnumber the knights, becomes a troop class of 6. You've got 8 of them. 6 times 8, 48. The knights are worth 9 apiece. Times 6, that's 54. The knights win, but only by 6. But because there's fewer than 20, because there's fewer than 20 figures involved on each side of the combat, we double that result. It becomes 12. We're still locked into combat. We have to fight another round, but that does remind me, the peasants, because we've got to double that, they move back a full move. They're going to go back a full 4.5 inches from where they started. So I'll do that off camera right back here. Take my word for it. You'll see it on the next turn. And then we fight a second round of combat. But because the knights charged, the knights have the option of doing what is called a flank attack. So these 2 guys in the back can come up to the front, and now, I'm just going to kind of put this guy back here. He's standing right on top of the objective. So we fight a second round of combat. Again, this is simultaneous. The rats are going to be rolling 2 dice, looking for 6s. They don't get any. The knights now have an extra couple of guys. They're not just going to roll 12. They're going to roll, 3 dice per man? Heavy horse against heavy foot, 3 dice per man. They're rolling 18 dice. So again, we're looking for 5s. I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I still have 6 more dice to roll. And I don't think it really matters because we get 1, 2, 3. So that's going to wipe this unit out. What happens to the guys that lapped around? I think we're just going to bring them back around like this into formation. And these guys are gone. But remember, now here's what we're going to do. We're going to bring them back to the back because the knights have to continue their charge 3 more inches. And 3 more inches means they're going to impact the leader. But they're going to do so with another 2 casualty markers. They're going to be fighting as medium horse. And the leader is going to be fighting as 4 infantry. So, okay, well, he's still medium foot. So he's going to roll a 6. He's going to get nothing. And with just the 2 figures in contact, we're going to roll 6. And we're looking for 5s and 6s. We are going to kill the leader. And that's going to trigger a whole bunch of morale checks. We'll start down here. And, just for the receipts, these Lightfoot moved back for the peasants over here. They retreated in good order a full move, which is 4.5 inches. These guys have to make a morale check using the troop type casualties and morale. They need to roll, all of these heavy foot need to roll a 7 or better. Except they're at +2 to that target number because the commander died. And because they're exhausted, these guys are an additional +1. They roll a 7. And that's, you add those to the dice, and that means this 9 is too high. Heavy foot need a 7. They failed. This heavy foot only has a +2. with a 5, they succeeded. The Lightfoot needs a 7, and with a 5 plus 2, right? Remember, these guys are only plus 2, they're not plus 3. They succeed. And then this big mob here, they're going to roll, they get a 3, which is going to be add 2, that's a 5. They're also good. So the only guys that failed their check are these guys right here. And they are removed from play. So both flanks for the rats have now fallen apart. And it's looking a lot better for the Bromans than I anticipated. That will be the end of the turn. We roll for initiative for the next turn up, but everything is not hopeless here, because we're on to turn number 5. And if we want to make the game really interesting, we don't know how many turns are left in the game. We have 1 disputed marker. 3 of these objectives are still being held by the rats. That changes things dramatically. If we put an 8-turn limit on the game, we're halfway done, and the question is, can we use archer fire to drive off enough rats to be able to seize enough objectives before the game is over? The knights being exhausted, bit of a problem. Maybe we can get them out of the way, and they can race back and seize this objective marker to steal 1, kind of confuse things a little bit. Maybe set up a rear charge on these guys, but we got to get them to safety, and they have to take a full turn to recover. So we really only have 3 turns available for them to act. And you don't want them getting charged, because they do really poorly when they are contacted. With all of that analysis out of the way, let's roll for initiative for the next turn. Okay, the Bromans really needed that initiative check, because it means that our archers get to stand still. It means that our horses are going to be able to race out of the way. They're already exhausted, but they do have a total movement of, let's see, heavy horse, they can move 6 inches, which is more than enough to get to safety. So we'll bring them over to here, and they will seize this objective marker, like so. At the end of movement, the peasants have rested. No more fatigue. These guys spun 90 degrees and moved up a little bit, about a half a move. They don't have the charge move to get into contact with the flank of the archers, which allowed the archers to pivot in place. Now, the archers use half their movement to pivot like that, so they're only going to be able to get off 1 shot in the missile phase. But there's a whole lot of cascading effects here. One of the reasons they decided to pivot is that this light infantry came over to the ford to get out of that front fire arc. So instead of getting 2 shots off at this unit, the archers are going to be able to pivot. They'll get 1 shot off here. Before we get to that, though, these guys charged, which they pick up another fatigue marker, and the knights over here rushed forward, seized this objective marker, and we'll have to see what happens on turn number 6 with them. Meanwhile, we do have the 1 shot over here, firing at the 10 archers, firing at that unit, are going to do, this is really deadly. They're going to do 3 more casualties with 3 more potential, but that's going to push this unit past their max casualties, and they really sacrifice themselves. Oh, by the way, I put a red chip down for the fatigued units, just so I don't have quite as much, table clutter going on. Can kind of get this out of there too. Just see, that looks so much better, right? Instead of having yellow chips all over the place, a little bit of red, a little bit of yellow. So the only melee we have here on turn number 5 is this one. I'm not even going to move the camera. It's going to be a 10v10 fishing for 6s, and this is really about all the last of the offensive punching power that the rat men have. These are the only 6s we've got. A pair of them on both sides. Am I missing any over there? Nope. And this is going to be a problem for the humans because they have a lot fewer guys. The rats have more guys. Instead of 5 points a figure, they count as 7. With 14 surviving figures, that gives them 98 points on the morale check. The humans have 8 guys left, times 5 means 40. With a differential of 48, double it, that becomes 96. And they are routing. We remove them from the table. They'll move back 1.5 moves. If they impact anybody, not commanders, he's yelling at them, hey, get back here, you cowards. What are you doing? You're looking like dopes in front of the peasants. These guys get to finish off their move, and that's going to be about another 2 or 3 inches, so they'll stop right about there. They did fight a round of melee, which puts them at 4 fatigue. That is going to end turn number 5. With an 8-turn limit, things get really interesting. If the rats go first, this leader is going to die. That's going to force a morale check on the rest of the Roman army. And that means that our knights way over here, they're already exhausted. Here's the red marker just to remind you. They're going to be at +2. The exhaustion means +3 to that morale check. That's going to be brutal. There's only 3 turns left. And right now, the Bromans have 1 marker. The rats have 2. And they really have a pretty secure area. Those knights are going to be a problem. So do the knights not move? Or do they race over here and contest a couple of these so that they can come out with a win on top? Maybe force the draw? A lot of interesting stuff going on here, guys. The other interesting thing is that this light infantry unit of Ratlings, now they only take half damage from the archers, but it may be in their best interest to race off over in this direction to slow down the knights. The archers only have a range of 7.5 inches. They can hit this objective marker, but that's already controlled by the rats. Maybe the best thing is for this open order unit to race over there and grab that objective marker. There could be a lot of changing of the objectives in this game yet to go. And these peasants over here, I mean, they're kind of a wild card. Who knows what they could do? They may just stand there for the rest of the game. Of course, it all depends on who wins the initiative roll on turn number 6. The Ratlings win, and they need to go first. They need to get out of range of these archers. The rats try to get out of archer range, and they charge the leader over here on the bridge. To do that, they have to move to open order. Fortunately, moving to open order is free. That does mean they are fatigued. They will be fighting as light infantry. We're going to give them a total of 2, 4, 6. We'll give them like half the guys, maybe 8 against the medium foot. Now remember, our leader fights as 4 figures, but he's got to stand there and take it. The peasants rolled a 5. They need a 6 in order to activate. I feel like I'm playing Dragon Rampant here. The archers pivot 90 degrees. That's going to cost them half their movement, which means they are not going to be able to fire both of their shots, but they are going to get 1 off, and they're within 7.5 the entire unit. So that single shot against lightly armed troops, but they're in open order, so they take half casualties. 4 with 5 extra chances, and I think I've been doing this wrong. We're not fishing for 6s. The archers, they had a really rough first quarter. They had to find themselves. They had to center themselves. They actually, the little plus here on the thing, see the little plus there is 3, 4, 5. That's what your target is. So it's not a 6s. Against lightly armored troops, my 10 guys have 5 chances, and they're hitting on 3 ups. So I had 4 hits, plus the original 4. That's 8. Except they take half damage, so they only lose 4 guys. Okay, that's still 50% of their troops, which does cause a morale check. But light foot, when they hit that 50%, they're out of the fight. So these just come off the board. So that whole unit comes off the board. Okay, archers are a little bit OP. I probably should have stuck with just the original 5. That means it's time for our 1 combat. And like I said, we've got 8 light infantry, exhausted heavies, fight as light, against 1 hero who fights as 4. When you run the numbers, that means we're rolling 4 dice on each side, and 6s hit. The blue, I should have declared who get 2. On a 1, 2, or a 3, the blue is the rats. Okay, I rolled a 1, so the blue is the rats. The rats are able to do 2 damage, and that does kill the leader of the humans, which instantly triggers morale checks across the board. We'll start with the +2 for these peasants. They're going to roll a 9, and that means with the +2 and 11, they have had quite enough. They're going to leave the board. With the +2, these guys need to roll a 10. A 4 means they succeed. These guys need to roll a 9 or less. A 5 means they will also succeed. And that's going to be the end of turn number 6. With just 2 turns left, the rats are in trouble. Remember, it takes a full movement, full turn, to go from open ranks to close ranks. They've only got 2 activations left. They're going to have to use one of them to close ranks. They do it back here, and they got to move 4.5 inches. They're going to be hard-pressed to keep these guys from securing enough victory points to win the game. Rather than hash out all the details, let's see who goes first. The knights are going to go first. And, the thing is, there's no sense in resting these guys for a turn. Medium horse are still really deadly in this game. They only move 6 inches, so we're going to pivot them just a little bit, and they're going to move 4.5. So they can pivot up to, it's about 1/8 of a move. So if they normally move 12, then 1/8 and blah, blah, blah. You know what? I'm just going to move them 4 inches. They're going to pivot a little bit. They're going to move 4 inches up to here. And that will be close enough to secure this objective, but not this one. So I think it's all going to come down to turn number 8. Blink. The archers, of course, can go ahead and pivot. I guess we're kind of wheeling backwards in this case to keep them out of the river. But they want to open up that field of fire so they can hit these guys, who will, of course. Now, here's the thing. Is this cheap? You guys tell me down in the comments. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have them form ranks like right here along this back row. And we're going to go a little bit wider. We're going to go 6 across. And I don't know how many ranks deep this is going to be. It's probably only going to be like 2 ranks deep. But that way, if they are able to successfully charge the knights, we're going to be getting 12 dice in. So 5, 6, and I'm just going to keep these back there. You get the idea. But that's all they can do. Now, they've closed ranks, and they've turned around. Should that take 2 turns? I don't know. We're just going to give it to them just because it keeps the game a little bit interesting. They are going to suffer 1 round of bow fire, which is going to do some damage to them. They are, like we said, heavy troops. So that's 3 casualties hitting on 4 ups. So 5 altogether. Yeah, these archers, man. I should have just had 5 of them on there. Now I regret. That is going to be 1/3 of their casualties. They'll have to make a morale check. With an 11, they're going to fail. That means they rout, and the table is fully in the hands of the Bromans. I told you these guys were OP. I should have trusted myself. Although, if we only had 5 archers down there, I think this whole wing would have collapsed, and the game would have gone entirely in the favor of the rats. It's that close of a game. But that's why we don't really worry about scenarios a whole lot here in the House of Wargaming. We're much more comfortable generating these the way Gygax intended, through a map-based campaign. And for the record, on the last turn, these guys will advance up to here, take the 3rd victory point, and the game will be over with a score of 3-1. And the real lesson here is what you didn't see. When the camera wasn't on, I was able to find the rules I needed, figure out the process, and implement the game as written a whole lot faster using the old Lords of Wonder and Ruin. Get it at your favorite online game shop today. Ask for it by name. It will let you play Chainmail in a streamlined, efficient, and really fun manner. Can't recommend it highly enough. Till next time, guys, remember, I'm praying for you.